Good evening. Welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show. I've started the broadcast a couple of minutes early, so we will just wait for some people to come on and then we can get started. Welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show. We have a couple of viewers online on this Friday, the 27th of January 2017. We'll just wait a few moments for a couple more people to join and hopefully a couple of people to join the Hangout to participate and have a conversation. If you are watching and you're interested in having a conversation, talking to us about belief or anything to do with Islam or religion, we generally focus on Islam in particular, but if you have anything around religion in general and you want to bring that up in the show, I have posted a link at the very top of the chat there. If you click on that, you don't need to have a webcam, particularly if you don't want to show your face. You can just have your voice and whatever icon comes with it. You're welcome to join in on the Hangout so that we can have a conversation. I'm just waiting for a couple more people to join and hopefully a few to join the actual Hangout itself so we can have a discussion. But if you are watching, as I say, feel free to join in. Click on the link at the very top of the chat or in the information box and it will allow you to join the chat. All you need is a computer and a microphone and you can be with us having a conversation here. And there we have Abu Khalif. Good evening, sir. How are you today?
Good evening. I'm fine. What
You
have
well?
you been talking about so far?
No, nothing. Just waiting for a few people like yourself and a few people on there. There's Smile. Hi all. Hi Smile. Just waiting for a few people to join us and then we can get going. There's a few things that I've sort of got here that are interesting, but again, you know, anything that comes up, I think, you know. By the way, Abu, just as a side note, I won't be able to host a show next Friday. I am away in Europe on business and I won't have access to run the show. So I don't know if you're available. If not, we'll see if Stops or anybody else joins, but if not, we might have to hold a show over for the following Friday. So just let me know.
If no one else hosts it, I can host it.
Okay. Yeah, just get some news articles. Hey Rob, were you able to try your points from last week's discuss? Smile, I didn't make it down to Speaker's Corner. I had a few family things that came up that prevented me from going to Speaker's Corner, unfortunately, on Sunday. And unfortunately, the next time I'm going down to Speaker's Corner will be, I'm just looking at the diary here, it won't be this Sunday, it won't be next Sunday. So the next time I'll be down at Speaker's Corner, I think, is the 12th of February. So that'll be the first time I will have conversations down there. It's been raining as well, but I had family things and I'm away on business, so I won't get down for a couple of weeks now. So the 12th of February, but the next time I'm down. So I will definitely go and have some conversation with people around belief and knowledge and so forth. But I've got a couple of interesting little clips here. I'm not going to play the whole videos, obviously they're extremely long, but I've got a couple of interesting clips that I thought we won't rehash the whole, you know, knowledge and belief thing. But I was interested in a couple of things that came up in one or two of the videos here. So if you're ready, then I can play a short clip of the video, and we can start having a conversation around what we think about the claims that are made here. So this is more sort of a generalistic claim. It's a claim about cosmology. We don't need to rehash cosmology necessarily, but there's more to it than that. It's not just claiming cosmology. There's certain other things, and I thought it would be useful to get like your point of view, Abu, and some of the viewers to hear what they've got to say with regards to the claims about being more reasonable than somebody else. And again, we won't delve into.
I just have another kind of. I just have a short news clip, an Islamic news clip that I think maybe it's best we show it first.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I just want to warn sensitive viewers that it might be a bit upsetting.
Quite graphical.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so if you're a viewer, you've been warned. There's a fairly graphical clip coming up. So, yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, that wasn't quite as graphical as I was expecting. I was expecting some kind of violence, but I guess that's psychological violence, if nothing else. And I'm following that, interestingly enough. I do follow sort of some of the social stuff that's going on as well, because it does interrelate with religion, and particularly with Islam. And you're quite right. That was the Women's March in Washington, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought it was in Berlin, but maybe the Women's March in Berlin. I think it was.
I have seen that clip, and I thought it was Washington, because obviously there was supposed to be like 1 million women marching in Washington to sort of give the message to Trump that they didn't appreciate whatever they thought his views were. But I have noticed that the let's call it the far left, or as Majid Nawaz calls it, the regressive left, seems to ally themselves with Islam.
But this is more absurd. This was radical feminists.
Yes, that's what I mean. And they are part of the regressive left.
Yeah. But it's like it's not just any regressive left. It's like the regressive left that focuses on what they think is women issues. So I don't know
what's called third wave feminism.
I mean, I don't support radical feminism and I don't support Islam, but I can't really see how they are compatible. You see what I'm saying?
No, well, they're not. And I would have considered myself, interesting. We'll go on a sidetrack here for a moment, because it does relate in a way. But I would have considered myself a feminist some years back. And about, say, 2 or 3 months ago, I started to look into this. And I was quite shocked as to what, it's commonly now called third wave feminism has become. And they these sort of people will quote that they want equality with men and women, but when you press them and when you look at what they're saying, they don't want that at all. What they actually want is superiority for women, and part of that is allying themselves with fundamentalist Islam. So they're quite happy to overlook the things that happen where there's real feminist issues in third world countries and Islamic countries where women are not treated as equals. But they are quite happy to go ahead and complain about things here. But you won't hear them complaining about how men get longer sentences, they get less access to the children, they have to do all the hard work, etc. No. You'll only hear them complain when they think there's something against women in some sense. And that goes with the gender pay gap and all this sort of nonsense. But when you look into the facts and figures, which, the truth always, comes to the fore, it's nothing like this. So this third wave feminism, one of their things is aligning themselves with Islam, because they think that all Muslims are being targeted. And of course, nobody, not even Donald Trump, is saying all Muslims. And so, but the rest of us are saying Islam, the ideology, is problematic, when nobody is saying all Muslims. But of course, that distinction is completely lost, or they just don't look at it at all. And so, they want to ally themselves and say, oh, all these poor Muslims, they're just being persecuted, where there's not, any thinking person is not doing that. Obviously, you're going to get some, Nazis and that sort of stuff, but most people are not like that. And so you kind of find them together, which is, quite shocking.
I think if you want a longer explanation for how it's even possible to be so confused as they are, I think I made a short video, and it's a short version of another professor in philosophy, or a professor in philosophy. I just call it the Enlightenment and Nietzsche vs postmodernism and the regressive left. But that's like the end of a longer book, like it's called Explaining Postmodernism. Because I'm like, if an alien would come down to Earth and like examine this logically, I mean, it would make absolutely no sense. How can how can a radical feminist support Islam? It's
what they don't realize is if those people came to power, and it wouldn't be the moderates, unfortunately. If you look at most Islamic countries, it's not the quote moderates who may well feel that equality, the sexes is fine. It won't be those people in power. So what they don't realize is that they are, mistakenly trying to, stop people targeting Muslims. And like we say, most of us are not targeting Muslims. We are looking at the ideology. But if that ideology were to take over, they would not have the feminism that they have now. They'd be under the sort of feminism. They'd have the real problems like, women do have with, genital mutilation and, stonings and whatever else is going on. Those are the extremes, obviously, but even not even that. Even here in the UK, women can't get divorces.
They would probably be sex slaves because they are not Muslims, and if the Muslims conquer the land, then they will probably kill the old guys that have reached puberty, unless they convert, and then they will take the women as sex slaves.
Yeah, so, it's a very fine line with this conquering thing, because it's easy to say you're conquering. As soon as you move into another land, you could easily spin that as I'm conquering this land. I'm moving in to take it over. And so this thing, it's very
they declare war on the UK, for example, and then they go there with their army, and then they conquer the land. Then
yes, and those are the extremists, or the but even the moderates. If you had to ask them, and maybe I'll ask them, would you prefer the UK as it is now, or would you prefer it under some kind of Sharia law? And of course they all step back. None of them will accept or own Saudi Arabia. So they'll all go, no, they're not proper Muslims, or they're not enforcing it correctly, or whatever the case is. Well, tell me which Muslim majority country or Muslim ruled country is implementing Sharia in a way that you think is acceptable, and then let's examine that country and see whether
It's just look what the Prophet Muhammad and his Sahaba, how they implemented it. Look at the
yes, they've all got excuses as to around that. They go, that was at war, we're not at war now, blah, blah, which of course, like I say, it's very easy to spin war. All you have to say is we're moving into a new country. The people there are resisting our attempts to bring in our culture. That's a war. So it's very easy. You don't have to have bullets flying.
But that's just a stupid argument. I mean, we said this before, the Prophet is uswatun hasana liman kana yarju Allah wal yawm al-akhir. The Prophet is the best example for those who is waiting for, or is longing for God and the last day. So I mean, you should follow the Prophet and you should follow the Sahaba. It's also a hadith that the best people are my generation, then the generation after that, and the generation after that. So look at how the Prophet Muhammad and his generation, and the generation after that, and the generation after that, how they viewed this issue, and I think you'll get the answer.
Yeah. And like I say, some Muslims try to step back from that, or retreat from that, with various reasons, because they wanted to appear more acceptable in the Western world. And I'm not buying that, and I don't think most critical, skeptical people buy that sort of view. It's very easy, like you say, to follow the example, or to look at what Muhammad did, and look at what people are doing in Muslim majority countries. and to ask the question, well, what's wrong with that? And they will try and give reasons, but I'm not convinced in any sense. If this was a Muslim majority country or ruled by Muslims, even if it was supposedly moderate Muslims, the changes here would be, we wouldn't recognize this country.
No, I don't even think they have to conquer it. I mean, I think it's just, I think it would be a gradual change, probably.
Yeah. I noticed a comment there from Lamb of God. He loved it when Ali went to Dawah into frustration mode with what is the mind. And I think what Lamb is referring to is a video with Ian and Shabir having a conversation in Speaker's Corner. Well, that was one of the times anyway, because of course, just as on a sidetrack, because I see the comment there, Ian kept asking, Ian's an atheist in Speaker's Corner, for those who don't know, and he was debating Shabir Yusuf, who's fairly well known and has a great following by the look of it. And Ian was asking, where's God? I can't see him, I can't touch him. Where is this God of yours? And of course, they were falling over themselves attempting to try and explain this, in a particularly poor way. And of course, they got to a point where Ali or Shabir, one of them or both of them, sort of said, well, where's your mind? And so that was their response, as in like, we have something that we label a mind, but you can't see it. That doesn't mean it isn't there. And that was their sort of response as to, eventually their sort of frustrated response to Ian's questioning of, well, where is this God of yours? You talk about it in a book, but where is he? I can't see him. I have no reason to believe something, Well, if you can't see something, it doesn't mean it isn't there. That was the sort of response. So sidetrack there. Yeah.
But is that really the case? I mean, what is that argument that they make? Can you see your mind?
Yeah, no, because Ian was asking,
your mind is the only thing you can see.
Well, you can't see what we call the mind, can you? It's a label for the thought processes.
Your mind is the only thing you see. What you see right now in front of you.
What do you mean by see? What do you mean by? Because maybe we're using different words, different meanings. What do you mean by see your mind?
Okay, I'm being a little bit provocative here, but it's like Descartes said. What is it in Latin? Doesn't mean that cognitive. In English, it's I think, therefore I am. I think that's a little bit false, because then you say just thinking, but it's more correct to say I have subjective experiences, therefore I am.
Even that is probably, there's been a lot of pushback against that as well. But when you use the term "I can see my mind," you didn't really mean see as in like we can even visualize the mind.
No.
Mean it in that
what I mean is we own the only thing. If you're honest with yourself, the only thing you can see is your mind. You're seeing it right now.
Well, I might phrase it differently. I might just say the only thing that I could say for certainty is that there is thinking going on. That's
no.
my understanding of that philosophical point.
No. Only when you're thinking. But the only thing you can't deny is your subjective experience. So even when you're not thinking, say that you're staring at a white wall and you're only experiencing the whiteness of that wall, and you're not thinking, then it's that experience is the only thing you can be 100% sure of.
Well, can you though? That's the question. Can you be sure? Because the presupposition would go, well, how do you know that? How do you know that experience is true? How do you know you're not dreaming it?
It doesn't matter. You can call it an illusion. You can call it a dream. You may very well just be a brain in a vat or whatever, but you can't deny that the experience is there. It's the only thing that is impossible to deny.
I'm not sure I'd use the word experience. What I would say, and the way I've heard it being used, is that you can't deny that there's a thought or thoughts going on. Something is happening, but could you call it subject? Because any experience that you have could be wrong.
Yeah, so they may very well be wrong. Like, say that you, I don't know.
Maybe it's just semantic words. Maybe it's just words that we're talking about.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, can you see your mind? I think that they want to make that as a rhetorical phrase to like, no, you can't see your mind because if you open your brain and look for it, you don't see your mind. But in fact, I would argue that you see the mind. I can't see your mind, but I see my mind and experience my mind, even if whether I want it or not. I may even be like Daniel Dennett that says that consciousness is just an illusion, but then the illusion is an illusion, and I'm experiencing that illusion anyway. So you see your mind, or I see my own mind, but I can never see anybody else's mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd use the word see. Maybe I'm
Or
experiencing
experience
something.
the mind, but one of those.
Yeah, when you got subjective experience, maybe that's closer.
Experience, seeing,
But
hearing,
going
smelling,
back to
tasting, touching, thinking, feeling. That's pretty much it, I think.
Well, when going back to the point that Lamb of God brought up, which was, can you see your mind? That in a sense, kind of rhetorical question. You would respond, yes, I can see my mind. Is that what you were saying? So if they
But
asked
the
you,
other thing is, can you see the spectra of radio waves that, for example, we are right now kind of not bombarded, this maybe, but we are in the background there is a radio wave spectrum of the cosmic microwave background, which is about 400,000 years after the Big Bang, and that is going through us right now, and we can't see it, but it's there. And also, like, neutrinos are passing right through us in this very moment, but we can't see them and we can't feel them or anything, but we know they're there through experiment.
Yeah, but that's not the way that's not the way they're asking the question, are they? So the reason they're asking, can you see your mind, is as a rhetorical response to Ian's question. Well, can you see God? And you would say yes. If I was standing there answering that question, I would go, no, I can't see my mind. The word mind is a label that we give to our subjective experience. That subjective experience isn't visible in any light. We can't see it. We can't even visualize it.
False. What you see is your mind. Like if you say, for example, when I make an experiment that can detect the microwave background by sending up a satellite, or you can even make it on Earth, although the resolution won't be quite as good. But when you're looking at the background, or make an experiment that detects it, you can say that might be false. I mean, it might be an illusion because maybe your mind is playing tricks with you, maybe you're just a brain in a vat, or maybe you're just dreaming or something. But the experience itself is actually the only thing you can be certain of, the only thing you can see. When you're seeing black, you're seeing black.
Okay, but okay, so there's I see where maybe you and I differ a little bit. I get it, and I agree with you. So in the following sense, you're having the experience, but when you use the word see, that's where, because I'm using my understanding of the word see is light rays coming into my retina, and I'm observing something outside of myself. So that's what I understand by the word see. What you what you might be meaning is a word, something like you visualize, or you have like an image come up in your mind or something. But when I think of the word see, I'm going, can it be visible in the spectrum of light that I'm... Let me
explain this. Because seeing is actually two different things. There is one unconscious part of your brain, or unconscious path, and there is one conscious path. So if, for example, if you're throwing if you want to catch a baseball or something, or a football is maybe more appropriate for an Englishman. So if you're a soccer goalkeeper and you want to catch a football, it's actually the unconscious part of your brain that is seeing the ball first, and only later your occipital lobe makes a construct that you saw the ball all the way, but you never really saw it. And there's another thing, on each eye you have a blind spot in the middle of the eye that you don't experience, but it's there. And also in the outer regions of the retina, there is no receptors for color. So actually, you're not seeing what you're seeing. That people are very confused about this.
Yeah, the mind is interpreting it. It's filling in some gaps. Sure.
Yeah, but the
But
seeing is only in the cerebral cortex, or more specifically in the occipital lobe. And the seeing is the mind. That is the mind. But, or well, like what you experience as seeing is the mind. But then there is an unconscious part that make things automatically, but you don't experience it. And there are people with with a specific brain damages that they have lost their conscious seeing, but they can still see unconsciously. So they can see movements and things like that, but they are not aware of it.
Okay, so I mean, we could talk a lot about this. I think it's just almost in a way a little bit semantical, because I'm using the word seeing as a conscious thing where light enters my eye. That's what I define as seeing. But then you're taking it a step further and going, okay, seeing is also the brain's interpretation of what's coming into my eye. And,
yeah,
and I wasn't going quite that far.
I know it's semantics, but it's because, you know, neuroscience is such a young science, and people haven't been thinking about this clearly. I mean,
all right. So let me use Lamb of God's point then, or Ali or Shabir. So you've said to me, let's just play this through. You've said to me, I'm the theist. You've said to me, Rob, where's God? I can't see him. And in frustration, I say to you, okay, Abu, or where's your mind? You can't see your mind. Can you?
To that, I would say, for the first, I can see my mind. In fact, it's the only thing I can see. The problem with God,
okay, what is it?
Then I would say there's a better example. Can you see like the signals, the radio wave signals that is going from your iPhone to from the
No, I can't see that. No, it's not in the visible spectrum that I'm able to see.
How do you know it exists? Well, because we can make experiments that can detect these waves, and we have a very good theory about how this works. But the problem is there's no experiment you can do that can detect God, or that can prove the existence of God, despite that we can't see them.
Okay, I mean, so your response would be basically that we can do experiments to see that we have a mind. We can do ECGs, we can do that sort of stuff.
Mind, we actually do. We don't need. We have the experience in front of us already. We don't need any more experiments. We have the mind is there. The only thing you can't deny.
Okay, see, I'm not a good theist, because I'm not sure how I would, what a theist would say to that. Anyway, it was just an interesting aside because Lamb of God brought it up. Because I think what I know you've gone into more of a deep answer, but I think what they were trying to establish is, hey, you can't see your mind, which you say you can. Most people would say they can't see their mind, and therefore,
yeah, but that's because they're false. It's not that it's not that my answer is deeper. It's just that it's truth. It's the truth. Pravda. It's the truth, dude. It's not like you have to go deeper into it. It's like, how did life evolve on Earth? I mean, you can explain it in some silly, simplistic way, or you can say, well, we can explain the evolutionary processes through which life evolved. And that's exactly what I'm doing. When you're saying, can you see your mind? I say, yes. In fact, it's the only thing I can see. But I agree there are other things I can't see, like neutrinos. But thanks to modern science, we can make experiments that can detect neutrinos, although they are extremely hard to detect. And we can, for example, know indirectly that black holes exist. But there's no way we can
actually
test God.
No, we can do more than that. Well, we can do more than with black holes, because we can pick up certain things. We can see what we can't see is what we can see in a sense.
Not this year, sorry.
I wouldn't use black holes.
Was it 2016? They detected, I think it was last year, this extremely important event in human history when they for first time detected gravitational waves, and that is from a black hole. So there we can detect.
Was it from a black hole, or wasn't it from the beginning of the universe? I thought there was one where they detected gravitational waves that represented, the origins of the Big Bang.
That's the BICEP 2 experiment, but the BICEP 2 experiment got into problems. That's a long story. But this later experiment is from black holes in 2000. I think it was 2016, or maybe I'm getting old. I don't know.
Okay. I think we're going off on a little bit there. Welcome, Fee. Good to have you on.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
Good. Do
We're
you want to
fine.
weigh in on this? If you were asked by a theist, can you see your mind? What would be your response?
No, I'll just listen to you guys. you gave.
Okay. No, well, it's interesting because Abu's got a view that you can see your mind. I'm not sure that I'd use those words. I think we're using different words. I'd say there's an experience. I could experience something, or some words like that. I would never say I could see my mind, because I've just got a different definition or a different perception of what the word see means to me. But Abu's got a sort of a different version. I think it's kind of similar when we get down to the bottom of it. But I don't know what a theist would say to Abu, because it's not something I wouldn't use the word I can see my mind. I would just say, we can.
I agree. I won't use those words that I can see my mind, because there's so many things, as you guys correctly pointed out, that we don't see, but we still agree that they exist. So that's just a simple answer for theists, I guess. There are things which we believe exist without even seeing them.
Yeah, but a theist would come back to you and say, "Oh, well, that's the same for God. We can't see God, but we believe He exists. So, why can't we believe in God if you guys want to believe in things that you can't see but you believe in? Why are you making it wrong for us to believe in a God? So, if you believe in neutrinos or something else that we can't, let's say there's something we can't test. Why do you guys believe that, but you won't let me believe in God?" That would be their normal response.
Yeah, but everything we believe in, as a atheist, we have some evidence for it. It's a famous quote from a lot of people that the teapot which exists, which you can't see, but anybody can claim whatever they want, that this God exists, or flying monster exists, spaghetti monster exists, but we have to prove it, we have to substantiate it, we have to have some evidence behind that claim. And as long as you don't have that evidence, you can go on believing what you want, but it's really not of any use.
Yeah, I would even take it a little bit further than that, and perhaps just because not everything we have evidence for. So, like the beginning of the universe, let's assume. By the way, I'm going to play a clip just now, and you can hear a little bit. But assuming there was a beginning, and most of the cosmologists that I've looked at say they don't know, and they actually think that the universe might be eternal. Now, if you listen to any theist, they go, no, all the cosmologists say that the universe began to exist. But let's assume that it did begin to exist. Whatever began to exist, we don't have any evidence for that. All we've got is things that are pointing in that direction, which we can't say is evidence yet, can we?
Wait.
So I would say,
just want to. Can I? This begin. This all. Once again, we have to understand, what do we mean when we say begin? Like, thanks to Hubble and those guys, we can see that the universe is expanding, and we can see that we can understand that there must be a time when all these things was expanding from. So there was a point in time when the expanding began. But that expanding itself, is that the beginning of everything? I don't know. I don't have any statistics, but a huge chunk, if not the majority of all cosmologists, think that our universe is just one bubble in a much greater multiverse soup. So
there are a number of cosmologists who think that the multiverse is a plausible theory. We don't have concrete evidence one way or the other, but the reason they think there's a multiverse is for various data put together suggests that that's a possibility. It's not like they're dreaming that up because they want to avoid a God. And I think that's the pushback that we get from theists.
Our best model for how this expansion began, or like for our best model of how our universe came into existence the way it is now, is what is called the inflation theory. You talked about Alan Guth, who is the pioneer of this. And that inflation theory makes predictions. And since one thing that the BICEP 2 experiment, for example, it would kind of confirm the inflation theory, or whatever you call it. And one of the predictions that it makes is that our universe is just one bubble, or whatever word you used to. So yes, there is no definite evidence in the way that we can see other bubbles right now. I talked about before that there are attempts to look at the microwave background, and there's a dark spot there that could indicate that another universe is kind of pushing on our universe. But our best model predicts that our universe is just one event of very, 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 very many, perhaps infinite events. And look at history. When we have had, look at, like, for example, what did Newton do? Newton, he kind of polished Galileo's theories and applied them to more than just what Galileo did. And because of that, he discovered a lot of new things. And look what Einstein did. He kind of polished the things that were already there, and then he got further and further. And this is like what we always do. If we trust our theory, this is what we should, this is what is reasonable to believe. So yes, we can't see them, we can't test them in that way yet. However, there is very good reason to believe, I think, that our universe is not the only one.
See, for me, when we can I just add, for me, when I've discussed these things with Muslims, what I've noticed is in past 2 years, since Ayera sort of came up with that video saying that, we shouldn't really rely on the scientific miracles of the Quran, what they have focused in past 2 years is how to make science, how to weaken science. That they're trying to say that science, because it doesn't give you objective truths, so whatever you throw at them, which is either evolution or the origin of the whole universe, we can talk about in terms of what other scientists are saying. But what they're coming up with is whatever you guys say or whatever scientists say, that's still going to be an incomplete theory. So we're not going to believe what everybody is saying, and we'll just stick to what Quran says about things with regards to evolution, with regards to the origin of the universe. We'll stick with the Quran's version because science is ever changing. That's what I hear from a lot of Speakers Corner sort of Muslims who are kind of linked with Ayera guys. And so whatever you come up with, evolutionary theory, because there's some challenges to it, hence we're not going to believe in what you guys are saying, but we'll stick to our version of things. So that to me is the main problem.
Yes, I agree with you. That's what they have done, because they don't really have concrete evidence themselves to present their tactic. And others, it's not just them, but they sort of catch on. And so Muslims are some years behind Christians. Christians are doing that already and have been for years, but they sort of playing catch up, as they often are. And so what they're trying to do now is poke holes in the naturalistic explanations. And of course, there's some holes in the sense that we don't have absolute knowledge about any particular field, but they're quite happy. Here's the problem, though. They're very inconsistent, and of course they don't like that, and they fill it with the God of the gaps. So there's inconsistency and there's God of the gaps with all these IRA guys, because what they're doing, as you quite rightly pointed out, is trying to poke holes. And if one accepts that science isn't deductive, that it's inductive, in the sense that it's not an absolute truth. Which, what is absolute truth anyway? So if we have to press what is absolute truth, we'd find there's very little that's absolutely true anyway, that we can claim with any level of certainty is absolutely true. So what they're trying to do is obviously say, hey, well, you guys don't have, deductive arguments, you don't have absolute truth, therefore there's room for doubt. And so the immediate question you and Fee and I and everybody should be asking, okay, so there's doubt. Do you agree there's doubt? Or do you think you can fill that doubt with something else? And if so, are you claiming absolute certainty? And if so, what is your evidence for your absolute certainty? And if you claim the Quran, well, that's a non-starter anyway. That's like a tautology. You need something outside of the Quran. The Quran is only a book of claims. It's not evidence for anything. And you'll hear it if I play this video later with Hamza, attempting to say, well, hey, science says X, Y, and Z, but the Quran already said it. Therefore, that makes my argument so much better, because the Quran says so. No, the Quran is a book of claims. It's not evidence for anything. It's making claims. We look outside the book to find out whether it's true. You can't rely on the book and say, hey, look at the book. Well, the book said so, therefore it's evidence. No, it doesn't work that way.
Can I respond to, like, I think, I'm not sure I understand this correctly, but Kiv say, Abu, you are making it complicated. Apologists are trying to prove God with this rhetoric. I think he was talking about when I say we can't make experiments for why multiverse exists.
No, I think if you look back, he said it multiple times. So I think what he's referring to is when you said, I can see my mind. I think that was, and maybe Kiv, if you're listening, you can confirm whether you were talking about when Abu said he can see his mind, or whether you're talking about when Abu referred to cosmology. I think because if you look further up the chat,
let me respond to both.
Came in earlier.
To both possibilities before, because if we start with the multiverse thing, there's a difference between God and the multiverse, and that is that our best theory that explain how our universe came about and how it works, our best theory for that also predicts other universes. There's a huge difference. We didn't just invent this from our own minds.
Yes, I agree with that.
We are forced to believe that if we accept our theory. And if we look back in history, every time we have tried to, like, for example, Albert Einstein, he had this idea that the universe is kind of static, but his theories actually predicted kind of a non-static universe. But he like added an extra component, a kind of cosmological constant. No, I remember what did he call it?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
What does he call it? And a constant, anyway.
Yes, but that was wrong.
That was wrong, but in a way, the dark. But in a way, it was right. We don't have to go into that. But the point is, every time this have happened, when our best theory predicts things, it has later turned out to be true. I mean, black holes is one of those things. We didn't know that black holes existed. It was just a crazy, weird idea. But our best theory, namely Einstein's theories, predicted black holes. But it was just this crazy idea. We didn't really believe that. But then it turned out that they actually do exist. So when our best theory of how our universe exists today, which I would say is Alan Guth's inflation theory, when it predict that other universes must have come into existence similar to our universe, and maybe extremely large number, maybe infinite numbers, then that is probably true.
A
huge difference between that argument and the teleological argument. What was the fee saying?
Well, I was just saying, I'm not very well versed with this, so I might be wrong, but there's for past 20 years, we've been claiming that the string theory is true, but that still hasn't.
No, but there's a difference between string theory and inflation theory.
Yeah, absolutely. But you were giving the example of black holes and Einstein predicted, and then they came out to be true in this day and age. But the string theory has been around for quite some time. But
do not confuse string theory with inflation theory.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about string theory if you want to. That's a longer topic, but the string theory hasn't been tested and in the same way as inflation theory has been tested. Inflation theory fits everything. It fits the data perfectly, okay? Like, I'm holding a door open for that some version of string theory might be correct, so I'm not that extreme. But you shouldn't confuse the level of certainty between those two. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
What was the other possibility? Abu, you're making the complicated when I'm talking about the mind.
Yes, when you said you see the mind and so forth, then you went into something that most of us wouldn't agree with from the words you're using. We may agree with you if we expanded on it like you and I talked about. But when you say I see the mind, if you just said to me, Rob, I see my mind without explaining it to me, I would say to you, Abu, I don't agree with you. I can't see my mind. But then you went on to explain it differently.
Yeah, but I have a problem with this. And this is that some things are complicated. You see what I'm saying?
But you also agreed with me, though, that
it might be
wasn't the right word.
What?
But you did say seeing is not the right word. So I'm not sure if you're going back to saying I'm seeing the mind, or you're really saying I'm having an experience. That's different from saying I see the mind.
Our vocabulary evolved, like, I don't know the word see. It's an English word. It's yeah, I think it's a Germanic word, comes from Proto-Germanic, which evolved from the Indo-European language family. And it evolved in a period when we had absolutely no clue how the retina works, how the eye works. We probably didn't have a correct theory of light. We didn't know what light was. We didn't know the occipital lobe works. We didn't know anything. So these words evolved in a period when our ancestors didn't know anything. The word for see in English is the same word now as 1,000 years ago, and I don't know what it was in Proto-Germanic, but it evolved from that word. Anyway. The point is, we don't have the correct word to explain all this. If maybe we can invent a new language that can explain it easily, but you have to make it complicated, because it is kind of complicated. With the language itself has confused us. So because it's better to, okay, you don't have to say you see the mind immediately. You can just explain the process. Okay, what happens when you see something? Then you can explain how the light, that is kind of three-dimensional waves that is hitting the eyes, and you only see it between a certain spectra, a certain frequency, but the other lights that we don't see, so it's just very, very, very tiny specific span. And then you can explain the retina, the eye, and how the signals travels from the eye through the brain back to the occipital lobe, and you can explain like the unconscious seeing and the conscious seeing. But the point is that the conscious seeing, the things that you think is seeing, that most people think is seeing, which is the conscious experience of visual things, which most people equate with seeing, although there is an unconscious part also, that you see. You see.
Okay, let me ask you this, because let me ask you this, because I think you're taking the word see further than I or most people would. If I look at the dictionary definition, and you're right, there are many different definitions of the word see. The verb is to perceive by the eye, to perceive or detect as if by sight. But if I ask you this question, let me see this. If you are blind, can you still see in your definition of see?
It depends on what kind of blindness it is. There are two kinds of blindness.
I cannot see, so no light is coming to my eye. So my retina are both destroyed.
Okay,
when light hits it, nothing goes through.
Okay, if we're talking about the visual experience, there are two kinds of blindness. There is one blindness, which is occipital blindness. Then you can't see anything. You might still have unconscious seeing, in the sense that you can detect movements, but you're not aware of it.
But you can experiment. Not be aware of it.
Oh, that's a long story. There's an unconscious part. There's experiments you can do to see that you can actually see movement, but you're not aware of it yourself. But it's only people with specific brain damage to the occipital lobe. Okay, so
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your eyes. Or let's say you close your eyes, or you had a blindfold, or you're completely blind and it's black.
I know what you're trying to say. Now we're talking about only the conscious part. Okay, forget about retina, the eye, all that. Now we're only talking about the conscious part. There is one kind of blindness that is a total blindness. You don't have any visual experience at all. And that is if you remove the occipital lobe. Then you have zero experience of zero visual experience. There's another kind of blindness. If you cut out your eyes and cut out the connection and anything, then you're still gonna see things visually in the same way.
So
you're
now
seeing
we change the word.
But that's not real blindness. That is just blind. That's just that you're not getting in any visual light. There's no input, but your occipital lobe still gonna imagine visual things. But the real seeing is in the visual, in the occipital lobe.
Okay, so for me, English being my first language, the word you're using there is not the same word. I would use the word visualize. So in other words, I'd have an image in my brain, would construct an image, but I won't see it. I understand the word see to mean light reaching my retina and then being processed by the brain. If the retinas were damaged or my eyes were cut out, I could not see. When I use the word in English language see, I cannot see.
Okay,
I could visualize, and I think that's the difference. If you use the word visualize, I'm with you. If you use the word see, so
I would say that both the word visualize and the word see has evolved during a periods when we didn't know anything about this. But fine, I grant you that. Okay, then we can say, okay, then I understand.
So if we went with that, if you accept that, just for the sake of this conversation, if you accept my version of the word see, which is light hitting your retina that you could then pick up. If you couldn't see that, and somebody said to you, Abu, can you see your mind? As in, can light retina hit your eyes that would show your mind? Surely you would have to say no in that case.
If you can't see that, but what a question is that?
Can you see your mind? Can you see your mind with light hitting your eyes to visualize your mind, to see your mind, not visualize? Sorry, I don't want to muck up the words. You'd have to say no.
Okay. Now I understand what you mean. You mean if you're looking at another person's brain?
Yes, correct. Or if you look at an ECG or anything like that, you can't.
No,
you can't see the mind. Correct.
Then
that was the whole point.
I can't see any other person's mind. In fact, I can't be 100% sure that other beings have a mind.
Sure, but that's a different thing. So we would have to say, if you were got to the point where you've accepted my version of see, then you would have to agree that we can't see our mind under that definition. Because I don't think that theists, when they ask that question,
I can't see other people's mind, at least.
We can't see any mind. We can't see our own mind.
I can't.
Not by the word see that I'm using.
No,
you could visualize some aspects of your mind.
Yeah, I can't see. But I think that's such a stupid, superficial way of looking at seeing that's just going to confuse people. This is what I mean when I say, like, you're complicating it. That's why I think you have to complicate it. Certain things are complicated. You can't just explain. You can't simplify. It's like, think that you're having an algebra problem. And you can simplify the algebra problem, but only to a certain point, unless it's completely solvable. But you see what I'm saying? So you can have a complicated, a long algebra like equation, and then you can simplify it to a simpler equation, but only to a certain point. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, but that's an analogy that doesn't quite fit the example we're talking about, because the theist asks you quite.
Because I think you have to. It's like you're saying. You can't. It seems when you like. Maybe some people may think that Darwin's theory of evolution is complicated, which is it's not. But if you have a very, very low standard for what is complicated, yes, then maybe Darwin's theory is complicated. But you're gonna have to explain it anyway, because otherwise you won't reach any real knowledge.
Guys, sorry to interrupt.
I think we've got to be careful.
I think we're going off the tangent a bit. As Kif rightly pointed out, apologists, they are not interested with this long explanation of the mind argument.
Yeah, but if they're not interested in that long explanation, they may walk in darkness for the rest of their lives. And maybe they want to do that, but then
I think the main point here is that we've got to be more careful with the words we use. I think that's the important thing. And when you said, when you talked about evolution, and you said it's simple, the explanation for evolution is simple. The evidence and understanding that is very complicated. I'm reading a book now, and I'm listening to it. Why Evolution is True. Highly recommend it. Anybody who wants to get a basic understanding of evolution, and I'm still halfway through the book, by Jerry Coyne. Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne. Read this book if you don't know enough about evolution. I don't know enough about it. It's highly complex. The evidence brought to bear. The explanation about evolution is simple. You can rattle off the explanation very easily. Now somebody says to you, okay, well, why do you believe that's true? You could again rattle off, the couple of the talking points. But if somebody challenged you on that and said, hang on a moment, I'm not sure that horizontal gene transfer is real. Can you provide evidence? If you don't know what horizontal gene transfer is, you're going to go, and I don't. I'm listening to it at the moment. So I think we've got to be, the whole moral of the story, I think, which is useful for us, is to be clear on what we say. And I think when we have conversations, especially in Speaker's Corner, not often enough, and I'm guilty of it, is saying to somebody, what do you mean by X? What do you mean by Y? We just accept that we understand what we think they mean, and then we have complications. Because if Abu had had a conversation with Ali around this, can you see your mind? He would have said yes. Now Ali, he's using the word see, and what he means, I think, is visualize. But Ali thinks he means see as in like light going into his eye. And so now they butting heads because they're using different words. And it's the same with evolution. The explanation is. The definition is simple. The explanation, depending on how deep you go, is much more complicated. And so we've got to be careful the words we use, and say the moment on our brain, Fee, you and I, when we're in Speaker's Corner, I need to do it more, is to think to myself, what does he mean by that? And then ask the person, what did you mean by begin to exist? What do you mean by that? Explain, give me an example. What do you mean by begin to exist? Because you will hear it all the time, going back to cosmology. They will all say, well, the universe began to, what do you mean by that? What else begins to exist? When you ask that question, you will then start to find out what they mean. They will give you examples. Then you can take it apart, because begin to exist in the universe we live in is not the same as how the universe may have began to exist, if you accept that as a possibility. And so we've got to be more careful with words. That's what I would say.
I agree. I quite like the discussion you guys had last time when you were talking about what began to exist. And the whole idea is you can talk about these things inside the domain of the universe, but when we talk about anything outside, then we really can't say what began to exist, because you're claiming the beginning of the universe is kind of outside the universe itself. So
well, I'm going to be a lot more I don't want to use the word dogmatic because it doesn't sound. I'm going to be a lot more certain about this. It's clear to me when I'm looking at the top cosmologists, I pasted it into the chat there, the top cosmologists are saying, we don't know whether the universe began to exist, but if we had to guess, or if we have to take our theory or our best explanation, we think the universe is eternal. Whatever they mean by that. So now we have to ask, what do you mean by eternal?
No, you have to look. If what I believe is true, then I think, imagine yourself, because this is important. When you say the universe, sometimes people mean our bubble, and sometimes they mean the multiverse. Okay, so if our or the theory that I believe, that imagine yourself that the multiverse is a huge sea, probably an infinite sea, and our universe is just one little bubble.
Sorry to interrupt, but none of the Muslims I've ever spoken to have said they believe in multiverse theory.
Okay, but let me just explain this. Sobran. So I just want to explain what I believe is true, so I can explain began and not began.
Okay.
So if you imagine yourself a huge sea, and in that sea, because of some reason, a little bubble appears, okay, from in the middle of the sea. And that little bubble expands for a while, and then maybe it snaps and emerges back into the sea. Okay, that little bubble had a beginning, in the sense that the bubble itself had a beginning, and it had an end when it snapped back into just being a part of the sea. But
Why do you think something will snap back,
multiverse? But the multiverse. I'm not saying that it does, but I mean
Oh,
that is not the important here. The point is that
Okay.
that bubble had a beginning, but it wasn't the true beginning because the sea was already there. You see what I'm saying? This is a metaphor to
Okay, so
explore.
yes. So we need to differentiate between creation ex nihilo, which is creation out of absolute nothing, which I believe is just conceptual. It's a theistic claim. We've never been able to replicate it. And when we have attempted to replicate it here in this universe, we've had particles come into pop into existence, virtual particles at random intervals. So whenever we've attempted to create a nothing, it's not a nothing in the sense that theists mean. So when theists say nothing or creation of the universe, they're talking about creation ex nihilo. There was absolutely nothing, not even the potential for a universe to come into existence by itself or through a naturalistic process. But I contend that that's just a concept. The scientists talk about nothing, which is the absence of space and time. And now that is something that's a naturalistic explanation, but theists won't accept that. They will say that's still something. So we are having a conflict over what nothing is, but there's two versions of the creation. One is ex nihilo, absolute nothing. The other is, as you say, Abu, creation ex materia. So what you believe is that if the universe did indeed begin, it began from some other existing material. It did not come from absolute nothing. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
And I don't think a lot of Muslims believe it. Most of them believe in creation by ex nihilo, as you said.
Yeah, they have to believe.
Correct.
If they believe the multiverse theory is completely contradictory to the Muslim view. So, or
Correct.
the Islamic.
So they
view.
have to believe it came from nothing, absolute nothing. I'm not sure if that's in the Quran. It may be. They claim it is. I mean, I can play you a little clip here.
If you look at the Nas, the Qur'an and the Sunnah, it's very, very clear that God created everything from nothing. I can find
Maybe
the
you can
Quran
find
verse.
Yes, please,
I
if you
can
could
find
that
Quran
together.
verses and hadith if you want.
I don't think it clearly says
Yes,
that
please,
he created from nothing. He might, but what it says is that God created this universe. I don't think it specifies that whether or not there could be other universe in parallel.
No. We don't need to know about other universes necessarily. I mean, that's our scientific theory, or that's one reasonable hypothesis given a lot of the data. We haven't confirmed it one way or the other, as Abu has said. But what I really want to see in the Quran, because I'm quite happy if it is, because they keep claiming it is, but I want to see what is the verse, the Quranic verse, or the highly accepted hadith verses say that shows that the universe was created from nothing and that it was separate from Allah. That's the part I'd be interested in. But going back to your point, Fee, so when they talk about something that begins to exist, immediately you and I must prevent them from equivocating, because they will do that. What I mean is they will say that anything in this universe, in our local universe, let's call it our universe, local universe, begins to exist. When I had this conversation with Hamza, he said an apple crumble begins to exist. There was no apple crumble, then there was. So that's one version of beginning to exist.
Yeah.
That's creation ex materia. That did not come from nothing. That came from it came from apples, and it came from other things. You put it all together and it now created something new, which we call apple crumble.
Yeah.
That's creation ex materia.
Other example I've come across is birth of a child. That is, there was nothing
Correct.
before.
That's creation ex materia. That wasn't from nothing. So everything in our local universe that begins to exist, quote unquote, is creation ex materia. But then they will go on to say, hey, because everything begins to exist, therefore the universe began to exist. And what they're doing, either knowingly or unknowingly, is equivocating, because they are not saying the universe began to exist creation ex materia. They are claiming the universe began to exist creation ex nihilo. That they have to justify that claim, because we know everything in our universe, our local universe, begins to exist creation ex materia. So the moment you go to the universe and say it began to exist, what sort of beginning to exist are you talking about? Please justify it. If you're saying it began to exist creation ex materia, I've got no problem. But they cannot say that. So they have to say it's creation ex nihilo, and that contradicts or that equivocates on everything within this universe.
That's a brilliant point. So basically, there is nothing we can compare with in this universe which has actually been created ex nihilo. There is nothing. It's always
correct. Ex nihilo is conceptual. We cannot even recreate it, and they've tried it. So what they've done is they've gone into a lab and they've taken air, they've taken every single particle out, and they can do this type of thing. So there's absolutely nothing that we could possibly see, measure, anything like that. There's a like a box of nothingness, let's call it. And from that box, they can still detect, externally looking in, they can still detect virtual particles. That's the closest we've come to creating nothing, but it's still not the nothing that these people talk about. So in actual fact, it's conceptual. It's like
but then
a three-headed dragon. It's a concept.
So in that box wherever they have experimented, that the space inside it is still following the laws of nature. So there's still something there. I mean, because they include the laws of nature in that understanding of that laws of nature got created at the same time the whole universe got created by God. So that to me is still following all the laws we've got in this universe. You know that.
Well,
sure.
Wait a minute. Like God created, the laws wasn't there until God created them. So I mean, their view is not that complicated.
No, but what Fee is saying is that the fact that I've talked about this box here is not, theists won't accept that because they will say, well, that still obeys the laws of this universe. I agree with that.
So nothing.
My point is that
even in that sense, it's not ex nihilo because it's still using the same laws of nature to create something, those particles.
Well, then we have to ask them, what are the properties of your ex nihilo? What is the properties of your nothing? And they will say, the absence of anything or the absence of everything. Does that include laws of laws? Yes, it will. So it's absolute nothing. The moment they say that, as far as I'm concerned, that's conceptual. That's like saying I've got a fire-breathing three-headed dragon. I can imagine such a thing, but it doesn't exist in reality. So it's the same for me in my world. It's the same for creation, for the absolute nothing that theists talk about. It's just conceptual. There's no reason to believe it exists. It's like their God. In fact, it's worse than their God. There's no evidence for it in any sense. We can't even, it's just beyond us in any sense. We just use the word, we throw it about, but when we examine it, why should we believe it? Because a book says so?
Right.
So it's conceptual. They're just giving me a view that, you know, why should I accept, you know, absolute nothingness? Because philosophies talked about it. There's no proof that it exists, so why should I believe it? Because none of us as non-believers believe the universe came into existence in whatever sense you mean by came into existence, if it did, from an absolute nothing. Every one of us, but they go around claiming this, and I don't understand why. I must ask them, why do theists think that non-believers, atheists, agnostics, think the universe came into existence from nothing? I don't know why they say that, because none of us that I'm aware of say that it comes from absolute nothing. I'm quite happy to say that it comes from the nothing that Krauss talks about, which is the absence of space and time, which allows for virtual particles to pop into existence randomly, no problem. But that's not what they're talking about.
I agree, and it kind of gives answer to the claim that everything comes from something. You know, that's the most common claim they make. Everything comes from something, and then, you know, go on to make their point.
Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Now that seems so simplistic, and you know, if you didn't think about it, if you didn't delve into it, you'd go, well, yeah, of course. You know, the argument is valid. It's not sound. Now, just for you, Fee, and for those who aren't watching, I was looking this up recently. There's a difference between a valid argument and a sound argument. A valid argument is that the premises, if they are true, the conclusion follows deductively. That's a valid argument. So if you've got premises and you can and you just follow it through, and the conclusion follows from the premises, that's valid. In order for an argument to be sound, the premises have to be true. So there's a difference between valid and sound. Valid is the two premises, the conclusion follows from the premises. We don't know if the premises are true, but it follows deductively from the premises. Then sound argument is you've got to have both premises or more than two, if that's the case, that are actually true, and then the conclusion follows. So there's a difference. So the Kalam argument is a valid syllogism, but it's not a sound one, because I don't accept the first premise, and I don't accept the second premise. So for me, I could argue either one or both of those.
Right.
So if you get asked, Fee, I would suggest, if you want to know more, we can talk about it, but don't accept either one of those. The universe began to exist. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. That seems so logical, and of course, it sounds true. And you'd go, well, yeah, it is, until you get to the conclusion, which is the universe began to exist. Now, if we roll back and we talk about creation ex materia, creation ex nihilo, you see that what they're trying to do is equivocate. And most people don't realize it unless you study this a little bit. And so that first premise, I deny it immediately. It's because the conclusion doesn't follow from that premise. So either you accept the premise is true, or you accept the conclusion is true, but then you can't have both, because there's equivocation there. So it's not sound. It's not even valid once we delve into it. And then, of course, they will take as axiomatic the universe began to exist. Well, as I've shown, I've put some links in there. I'm listening to a cosmologist regularly. They say they don't know, but it could be eternal in some sense. Now, we'd have to understand what they mean by eternal. So they are not saying the universe began to exist in the way that theists think they are or want to claim they are. That's the big difference. So premise one, premise two, I dispute both of those. So we're not even going to get close to your argument, or we're not going to get close to the conclusion the universe began to exist. But I will argue that better next time. If you watch my argument with Hamza, because he points to it in one of his videos, I did part of it, but he did switch the kalam around a little bit, but he didn't get the premise. He didn't understand the creation ex materia, creation ex nihilo, and I didn't explain it as clearly or better as I have tonight. And so, we went around about. But I do want to play you something from Hamza, and I want to get your views on this to see. It's not a long bit, but I just want to get your views on part of what he says here, both Abu and Fee. If I can play this, and then you tell me what you think.
Shoot.
Okay, let me bring this up. Here we go.
So no, because we've both got using the same string, like I said with these guys here. We're using the string of science and what we know. But when you throw in creation, the wonder within creation, and then you throw in the religious side of things, the books and such, and the prophets and the messengers, then it's completely overloaded against you. Because you've got nothing in response. You can't even challenge my first string. My first string overrides those. For example, the first string is that the universe began to exist and required a cause.
Okay, so obviously that's pertinent to what we're talking about here. But I want to go back to what he said prior to that. He's suggesting that we can't challenge, or that he can override us because of this, whatever begins to exist as a cause, because the book says so. So he says he's got a lot of strings in his bow. We only have one, which is our scientific understanding of what happened at the beginning of the universe, which, as I've said many times, and the scientists say the same thing, we don't know what happens prior to T0. But his claim is that, oh, no, I've got more strings, therefore my argument is much better than yours. So that's the part I want to get your feedback on.
Yeah, I did see this video, and he claims, he actually points out to your video where you've done exactly the same thing, that he said you didn't have anything else left in your arsenal, and he had plenty more to give as an evidence that Quran and Islam is true. Is it not? I think he pointed out to that video which you were saying earlier.
Correct. I hope I get a chance to speak to him again in a couple of weeks' time, or whenever we go there, and I'm going to ask him about this. I'll make sure I get it on camera here, because I want him to, obviously he attempts to do it here. If you want to go watch it, I don't want to give you the long one. I'll actually see if I can post it for you somewhere in the chat, so you guys, for the people that haven't watched it, you can go and watch it, because I don't want to bore everybody with a long explanation on this one. But I'm definitely going to go and challenge him on this, because I want to understand what his other strings are and how they are so overriding. What I think he's going to talk about is, well, hey, science, the universe, he's going to try and bring in the philosophical argument, which is the Kalam argument, and then he's also going to point to the Quran and go, hey, but the Quran says this. So therefore, I've got a much better argument. Here's the Quran saying this. Here's philosophy saying this. All you can say is you don't know. That's all I have to say until we've got better evidence.
This is something which they've used for years, isn't it? They start with the cosmological argument and then go on to morality, then go on to saying Quran is word of God. So these are obviously the known tactics which they use all the time. So it's nothing new in my understanding. However, everything what they have claimed has been refuted time and again. That is not the case. I mean, whatever you're claiming is, it's not correct. So everything what they had in their arsenal is still sort of been addressed already by a lot of people, and they still don't believe it.
Well, look, at best, if we were very, very, very charitable for them, we don't know is in some cases our best response, because it's the most truthful response. They see that as a weakness, and there's a chance to inject God or to say there's doubt. And if there's doubt, then they have an explanation that somehow is better than our doubt. That's if we were extremely charitable. That would be the best they can do. And so this is what theists do, is they're looking for those things that haven't been explained, be it solipsism, which was what we were talking about earlier, that only the mind exists and nothing else we can say for sure, be it what happened.
Wait a minute. The philosophical idea of solipsism, that you don't have to equate that with I don't think that the mind is the only thing that exists, or that it is my mind that is the only thing that exists. However, it's the only thing that I can directly experience.
Yeah, but we can't prove it. That's the point with solipsism. We can't demonstrate that anything outside of thinking is going on from a philosophical point of view. It's been a sticking point forever. Nobody's ever come up with a solution to what they call hard solipsism. How do you demonstrate that anything else is real in the sense that you can demonstrate it, show it deductively? Absolutely. We can't. Okay, that's all I meant by that.
Okay, if that's all what you meant, that's fine. But I mean, just because ultimately I can't prove anything else, but that doesn't mean that I believe it. I don't believe that solipsism as a truth claim is true. You see what I'm saying?
No, well, I don't either, but I can't demonstrate that it's false, and that's the point.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm a pragmatist as well, so I don't live my life.
Then I'll clarify this. Okay, it's fine.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, then we clarified it.
Yeah, no, I don't in any way hold to solipsism in any sense, which is the belief that that we can't prove anything. That may well be true in philosophy, but no human being on this planet lives their life as if solipsism is true. So
there is a story
of philosophical point.
There is a story of Bertrand Russell. He said something like, "I once met a woman that was I don't remember what the story was. I once met a woman that claimed that she was a solipsist. And then she wrote letters or something to him explaining why everybody else should be solipsists. So he replied something like, why are you writing letters to me if you're a true solipsist? And you don't believe that any mind except your own exists."
Yeah. So obviously she's...
I don't say it as funny as he did, but you can look it up. Bertrand Russell solipsism. The real... I don't know if that story is true. Maybe it's a little bit like Newton and the apple. Maybe he made it up, but it was a funny story.
Yeah. No, I mean, so solipsism is, and again, you'll find you'll find that the IERA guys will try this every now and again. So they found an argument from the Christians which challenges it, which is the presuppositional argument. So you'll see Imram try this. They've got no basis for it, and they sort of beginners at it, but it's an easy argument to pick up, and it's an easy argument to catch people out. Because all you have to do is, well, how do you know that anything you believe is true? Now you try to justify why you think anything's true. And it gets you to a point where you can't answer it internally. It's called an internal critique. You hit a brick wall. They circumvent this brick wall by going externally and just saying, hey, well, God's given it to me. And they think this is a justifiable answer. So again, wherever we have some doubt or we haven't got an answer for, that's what these guys are doing. They are trying to find a way to say, oh, you guys don't know, but I've got an explanation. And for those people who don't investigate this, it sounds reasonable. That's the problem. It just sounds reasonable, just reasonable enough that people might be persuaded by it. But of course, when you investigate it, you go, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, I agree, because again, same in the case of Hamza's sources, he started delving into the whole science of consciousness as well, because those are the realms which we haven't really explored in that sense, as we've done, as in science has done in other domains. But these are the sort of, gaps in our understanding which are being looked at, but they haven't really found out where the consciousness began. And the same with what you guys are saying as well. It's the same thing. They're just trying to find gaps and just putting their God in those gaps.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So, that was a point that I had before. How do you account for rationality? So now you can give a philosophical answer, or you can give a naturalistic answer. Neither of them is absolutely guaranteed either way. But they go, hey, no, and they try to pick holes in it, and then you ask them the question. They go, well, God gave it to me. That's how I know I've got rationality, which of course is completely circular as well, and just question begging and just an assertion. But again, for people who don't take this very seriously and who are just standing by, they go, wow, that's so reasonable, because you don't look into it, you don't have any training, and I'm by no means an expert, but I'm learning more and more. And the arguments sound reasonable. That's all they have to be to most people who are uneducated. It just needs to sound eminently reasonable, and they'll accept it. They won't take the time to go and investigate this and go, hang on a moment, you guys are in exactly the same position as the non-believer. You just claim that you're not. You can't demonstrate you're not. All you're doing is claiming, and it sounds reasonable. So, that's what they're doing. All they're doing is, it's essentially hoodwinking people who don't know any better. And that's fine, not all of us are experts. But as we look into this, and as you listen to real experts, they'll make mincemeat of these guys. And I'm starting to learn that as well. But if you go and listen to philosophers, if Tsortzis or any of these guys had to speak to a real philosopher and try on the rationality, try on any of these things, they'll be put in their place very quickly. These are old arguments that have been done, and they're bringing it as if it's new. But you're right, they're not bringing it as in it's an actual real argument. It's just enough to give doubt that the rest of the Muslims who are not really taking the time to look into this, it just sounds reasonable. I mean, I've heard it so many times on my channel, with these sort of arguments. That sounds, Rob, that guy sounds so reasonable. Again, because they just don't know any better. They're not prepared to investigate. It sounds reasonable enough, and so they go, yeah, wow, Rob, the man is making sense. And I'm going, oh my goodness. But it's only because I've taken more time to look into these things. I'm not going to let them get away with, these nonsensical claims. Well, I've posted in a link in the chat there to that video that, part of the section that I just took. So for those people that are interested, obviously you can, go and watch the entire thing. And that guy, Andy, he's quite a good guy. He's a nice guy in Speaker's Corner. He's read a fair amount on philosophy and so forth. So he's a good guy. I speak to him regularly. I always get some good information from him. So watch that one. He's more reserved. He's not so forthright, because Hamza's just making claims there, and Andy's just like, hey, I don't think that's true. No, it's true because X, Y, and Z, and I've got 5 strings in my bow. Well, big deal. Doesn't mean that the strings are true, or that we have to believe it, or that it makes your argument any better.
I agree. Can I play like a small clip from the Speaker's Corner, I think last week, regarding the evolution debate discussion? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I haven't tried it. Screen share.
I'm not sure if the audio will play. You might have to play it through the speakers on your computer to be picked up on the mic, but try it anyway.
All of the natural laws. Okay, yeah. But in terms of particulars about, for example,
can you guys listen? Can you guys?
Yeah, we can hear that fine. Yeah, carry on.
The whale linked to a land mammal. As a Muslim, I can't say yes or no theologically. Okay. Right? But in terms of human-chimpanzee relationship, Islam makes it clear there's none.
There's none.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, you're saying that it is a complex. So that life was created complex. Because that's you have to you either say that chimpanzees evolved from a different ancestor than humans did, if you assume that evolution is possible, or you just say that humans came into being as humans already.
No, I believe human beings came as they were. As they are now.
How you can see it?
Now,
do you think fossils are false? Yeah, made up.
Okay.
Can you explain?
No fossil, and this is according to paleontologists. No fossil can be shown to be a non-human primate ancestor. All they have is speculation based upon homology. Okay, that's all they have.
Human primate ancestor.
No, a non-human primate ancestor.
No fossil.
So, for example, whether you have Lucy, you have Homo naledi, whatever you have, it's speculation. That's all you have.
What do you mean by speculation?
Stop it there for a moment.
What do you mean?
Lucy is not an ancestor of human beings. That's a speculation.
Based on Lucy's a speculation.
Okay. The claim that any fossil, whether it's Lucy, Homo naledi, Homo erectus, whatever, is linked to a human being. There's several problems here. Number one, according to atheist evolutionary biologists, paleontologists, no fossil can be shown to be another one's ancestor purely because it doesn't come with a birth certificate. Henry Gee, here at King's Cross, we have the link to German.
Sorry?
Okay, good. I think we've... Yep.
Yeah, that's it. So just want to check what your thoughts are. Basically, all he's saying is, he's not sort of relating any of the fossils and then sort of taking it back to the original ancestors. So he's just completely negating the theory of evolution. I don't know if anybody has seen this video or not, but basically his point was...
I haven't seen that particular one.
Okay.
But you have a look. He didn't do it quite on this, but he did a debate with Aaron Ra. I don't know how he got to debate Aaron, but there you go. He did a debate. Look that up. Just type in Aaron Ra and Sabur, and you'll see, because he's the evolutionary guy from the IRA guys. Imram is the kind of rationality presuppositionalist, and then Swords just jumps between all of them. So those are the three main guys. So he normally talks about evolution. He sometimes talks about Darwinism. Nobody believes in Darwinism. We believe in the modern theory of evolution. But his claim there, again, he doesn't quote any particular names, but his claim basically is that we can't show absolutely that any previous fossil is related to human beings. In other words, Lucy or any of these things. Now, again, if one looks into this, and again, it will take some time, there's a great deal of evidence to show that how the fossils change over time, and that we are related. Now, there's inferences made, of course, like anything in science, there's inferences, but there's a lot of data and information to do that. We're not just going, hey, it's a smaller fossil, that looks like it could be, an ancestor of the human, therefore it is. There's a lot more to it than that, and there's multiple different fossils, so it's not just one. And so they built a great deal. So he's dishonestly claiming that we can't say it absolutely. But no biologist, paleontologist says anything's absolute. There's a huge amount of evidence, as you know, that weighs in on this and says that these are the ancestors, and here's the reasons. Once I've got through Jerry Coyne's book, Why Evolution is True, then hopefully I'll be able to give you more information on why that's the case with actual data. But there's a lot of it to say that. So, but most people go there. We're not evolutionary biologists. We aren't experts. So it's easy for him to make claims that nobody does this. So he can make absolute claims. Now, if I was there, I'd say, press him. Okay, so show me who says this. I will show you. Have you read Jerry Coyne? Why don't you debate somebody? He's now that he's debated Aaron Ra, he will claim, I've debated Aaron Ra. Aaron Ra is very knowledgeable, and Aaron is knowledgeable on evolution. But they didn't talk specifically about this as far as I can remember. But we'd have to look up the debate. But he will now claim that he's spoken or he's had a debate with him. And yes, they do say this. So it's very easy for these guys to be not entirely honest, if I'm being charitable. Being dishonest is probably a more accurate assumption of what they are. So all you have to have is one debate under his thing. Hey, I've spoken to it. Aaron Ra, you know him? Yes, we all know him. He's quite knowledgeable on evolution. Yeah, I had a debate with him on this. He won't say whether Aaron acknowledged this or whether this was brought up or anything like this. But again, his claim is what they're looking for here, as you've quite rightly pointed out. They want to say, oh no, it's not guaranteed. That's all they want. They just want the admission from us that it isn't guaranteed, that anything isn't guaranteed. But they will accept, as you heard there, he will accept other paleontologists when they make a claim that agrees with his position. But as soon as we want to claim, hey, this is true, with the best evidence we have, hey, but you guys can't say that absolutely, can you? And of course, we have to say, no, we don't, but nothing is absolute. Well, as long as you can't say it absolutely, then there's room that my God could have done it. Well, how do you know that? Well, that's a different story, but you can't say it. Now because they haven't got a theory. Well, give me your theory, intelligent design.
That's
what
right.
predictions has intelligent design made that we can test? Zero.
Yeah, I've actually never heard any good argument supporting their claim that just the human beings are an exception in the evolutionary process. The rest, everything else could have come from, the normal evolutionary sort of process, but not human beings. But nobody's actually explained it. They've just claimed that, they've just made a claim that this is how it is, but they haven't actually explained it ever.
Yeah, you see, he's not one of them. He doesn't accept evolution. He doesn't accept it as far as I'm aware. But there are actually some quite smart Muslims who do accept it. They do accept that the evidence is overwhelming. I'll try and find the video of this pretty smart Muslim. He goes, do you know what? Evolution, it's an overwhelming. We cannot deny evolution as its part, but we do want to make an exception for human beings because it says so in our book. And so what the smart Muslims are doing.
Yeah, I think there's Osama Hassan who actually believes that evolution is true, and he says the facts. I mean, it's overwhelmingly sort of accepted in the scientific majority, so we as Muslims have to accept it. And Yasir Qadhi, he says human beings are an exception, and rest everything else could have actually come about through evolution.
Which of course is contradictory, but at least they're moving forward. Now we just need to get them to accept that humans are part of that. Because of course, if they claim humans are separate from that with the evidence, and this is what what Sabur may be trying to do, is going, hey, yeah, I might accept the rest of evolution because it's overwhelming, but hey, we can't absolutely prove that previous fossils are our ancestors. So there's a gap that I can say, hang on a moment, you haven't got absolute proof, but the Quran says this, and therefore I'll go with that. So that's the way they're trying to play it now. They're accepting it potentially because it's so overwhelming, but trying to make an exception for humans by claiming that we don't have absolute knowledge. But by that standard, we have zero knowledge at all about anything. So you can see how dishonest it is. When it suits them, they will claim absolute knowledge. When it's in their favor, they'll take the scientific view. So you've got to watch for this because they do this all the time. And I think they're being dishonest. I think they know they're doing it. I don't think that they are so stupid that they don't know that they're doing this. I think they know they're doing this, and it just rushes over people. The debates now for some of these guys, like the Ayera guys, are not there to be honest. It's there to show that there's some doubt, which will give Muslims a feeling of, well, I can still believe it. Look, the non-believers don't have absolute proof, therefore I'm justified in having my beliefs. That's what it's about now, I think.
I agree. They're just planting a seed of doubt in everything. All the scientific claims. They're just sort of sending out this message that there are doubts about everything from the scientific community. So don't worry, just follow your own Islam.
Yes, science is always changing. And that's only half true. What science is doing is continually improving. That's a better way of putting it. But the claim that they will always get, and we have to say it, we can't get around this. The claim that the question they'll always is, can science change its mind, or can science be wrong about something? Yes, it can be wrong about certain things. Is it likely to be wrong about inflationary theory, or is it likely to be wrong about the theory of gravity or the general theory of relativity? That's so unlikely as to be virtually impossible. So we take that as knowledge, as justified true belief, that those theories, which are scientific theories, are as close to truth as anything like the sun's going to rise tomorrow. So, but they want to go, is it possible that it could be? In philosophical terms, anything's possible. But is it realistic in our real world that we're going to overturn, the theory of gravity or, general relativity? No. And the same with evolution, by the way. Those are as well documented facts about the natural world as we have about anything.
So let me ask you guys one question then, and same for the chat as well. So what Muslims say mostly is that Quran doesn't really goes against any of the scientific claims we currently know. So what is your best argument against Islam or Quran itself?
What scientific claims are you talking about?
No, sorry. What I mean is it doesn't go against the current understanding of science.
In what
Everything about origin of the universe, about how things work, and
I mean, it definitely goes against the theory of evolution.
correct. Yeah. Okay.
But is that what you're talking about?
So I'm trying to just find what are your best argument against Quran or Islam?
My best argument against. Okay, I would say actually the best argument is that the Quran makes and the Hadith make certain falsifiable claims that can be tested and proven wrong. That's my best. One example is, for example, in Surah Yasin. I was touching upon that last Hadith of the week. What is it? It's like والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. That it is the sun that is moving, that is going around the earth, and not the earth that is rotating against its angle. Like.
So that's from Hadith, is it?
No, that is
Quran.
Quran and Hadith and Tafsir of Quran and everything. It's very clear when you read both the Hadith and the Quran that, and if you look at all the Tafsir and all the Sharh of Hadith and the Tafsir of Quran.
Let's just stick to Quran itself, because that's the main.
Okay, wait. Give me in Surah Yasin.
You have a look there. Bring it up.
I have to destroy this.
You can bring it up there. While Abu is looking there, there's no demonstration from my point of view that anything in the Quran is true in the sense of scientific claims. So they have to do a lot of acrobatics to show that that's the case. And when you show, for example, that translations have changed to match our current scientific explanation, then the response is, hey, all we're doing is updating the translation to make it more accurate. And my position is, well, fine, if you want to update the translation, you cannot then at the same time claim that it's scientific. Because if you look at the old translations, for example, about the expanding universe, they don't say that. They say the vastness of space. And then after 1929, once Edwin Hubble had proven beyond any doubt that the universe is expanding, then the translations changed from vast space or vastness to expanse or expanding. And so you get this change of translations at the beginning of the 1930s. I'm fine with them changing translations if they want to make it more accurate, but then don't claim that it's scientific at the same time. Because if you look at the original translations,
what their response is, Rob, is because Quran is there for all eternity. As we move along in our understanding of science, we then extract more and more out of the Quran, and just update our understanding as per Quran. So that's their response normally.
Yeah, that's bollocks, because either we understand the Quran or you don't. Now, if you want to change words, that's fine. Extracting this is just another way of saying that all we're doing here is we are reinterpreting to make it sound like it's more accurate with science. We're not there's not new information with regards to this. There's the verse. You've now changed it from vastness or vast to expanding or expansion. And that matches current science. That is two different words. It's the same thing. If you watch there's a video with, what's his name? The tall guy, Muhammad, talking about the miracles, talking about, and Allah said, and of course Abu would know where this is, but Muhammad saying, oh, and in the future people will play music on their heads with musical instruments. Now I heard this and I'm going, nobody's doing that. And he goes, well, but of course we're doing that. You've got earpods. And I'm going, what? Are you equating playing musical instruments on your head with earphones in your ears? is this the length of, you know, how you've got to be dishonest or try to stretch what the meaning is to make it sound true? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And if you look at the real Arabic nas, if you can give me that, I can dissect it. So that it may not even be the original, what it actually says. I found the in Surat Yasin. Okay, this is gonna be in Arabic, so it's very clear. Wash-shamso, the sun, and the sun. Tajri. To understand this, you have to understand Arabic grammar. Tajri, the shams is female, so that's why it's tajri. It means it runs. So it means it's the shams, it's the sun that is running, or running is maybe not the same way as what is called that boats. What do you say about boats that go on the ocean? What's the word? What do boats do when they move?
Sail.
Tajri is the same as running. Jara. It's just that floating forwards or something. Anyway, so the sun is, what did it translate as this? On a course, runs on a course. Okay, runs. Okay, runs like water. Washams tajri. So it's the shams that is running. You can see this through grammar because it's tajri and not anything else. It's not anything else that's tajri. It's not anything else that is moving the sun. It's the sun that is moving, that is running. لمستقر لها, to a like what do you
So
to a stopping point.
Of this is?
No, let me explain this. It's going to take a while, but let me explain. It's important. Mustaqar is a stopping point. Istaqara yastaqirru. Laha, for her, for the sun. ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. That's not important. والقمر قدرناه منازل. And the moon we have determined for it phases. Manazil, like a place. حتى عاد, until it returns. كالعرجون القديم, to the old date stock. Okay, this is important. لا الشمس ينبغي لها, and it's not allowable for the sun. And tudrik, here again, to tudrik means adraka, means you reach. What's the word in English? You like say that you have a runner that is running. You have a like say Achilles is running after the guy that ran the marathon, for example. So after a while, because Achilles is so fast, he yudrik the marathon guy. So he reach. You see, what's the word in English? Yudrik. How do you say that in English? Like you reach, you run after him, and after a while you reaches him. So that's what this means.
Sure. Sorry, but I just want to understand from you. What are you trying to explain here? Because I'm just not following you. What is the explanation?
I'm going to falsify the Qur'an. Tudrik al-Qamar. So the Shams will not tudrik, will not reach the Qamar. Wala laylu sabiqul nahar, and the lay will not like will not reach the day. وَكُلٌّ فِي الْفَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ, and all of them are swimming in the falak, which means like the sky, or what I should call it. And this, when you read this in Arabic, it's very clear that it is the sun that is tajri, which means.
But doesn't the translation say that anyway?
The sun doesn't tudrik the moon. The translation here, if you look what Tafsir ibn Kathir talk about this, and there's a very funny hadith that explains all this. Anyway, when you look at this, and all the old Tafsir book, they see this as it is the sun that is taduru hawl al-ard, that is run like orbiting the earth, and not the opposite. So it's
yeah, well, I think that's
it's
clear
not
from
a
the verses.
Yes, it's very clear when you know the Arabic and know the Arabic grammar. And if you look at both Quran, Hadith, Tafsir, and Sharh, it's very clear that the Quran and Hadith says that it is the sun that is moving around the earth and not the earth. And that is how the day and night appears. And even
So
that
you would be very good at debating the guys in Speaker's Corner on the Arabic text here. For me, I can just see the English text says that, the English translation says that. They then try to, change it, but you would be able to counter them. Obviously, I don't speak Arabic, but you could easily counter them from an Arabic perspective. I just counter them from the English perspective. That's not what the English translation says. Are they telling me that they can better interpret it than the English translations that are currently available?
Look at, if you don't have to be good at Arabic. Washamso, tajri. There is just what you can only how do you say, bend the verb in an X amount of ways. Tajri can only mean that it is the bloody shams that is tajri, that is running, which means, and here tudrik la shams yanbaghi laha an tudrik al qamar. It's the sun is not how do you say tudrik in English?
The English translation says it there. It's swimming in its own course. I mean, that doesn't take a leap of logic to understand that it's on its own course. In other words, it's revolving around the earth. So, but is there something wrong with the English translation?
It's even more apparent when you know the Arabic. And if you read the tafsir and read the hadith that explains this, is so bloody obvious that the
what annoys me is, why is this not common knowledge? I mean, there's so many critics of Islam who can read good Arabic and Quranic Arabic, and why are them not coming up? Scholars and all. Why are not they?
Because they're dishonest. If you have guys like Jinn&Tonic, I don't know how good is Jinn&Tonic at Arabic. Is he really that good? But he's an obvious. I mean, he's a con man, or whatever you call it. But the thing is, when you look at what guys like Ibn Abbas and Al-Uthaymin says about this, I have fatwa books from these guys. These are the biggest mashayikh in our time. They interpret this as I interpret it, that it is the sun that is running around the earth and not anything else.
I interpret that as well. But to answer your question,
I think even Ibn Abbas, that was Mufti of Saudi Arabia, he even said that someone that says anything else would be a kafir. But then he cannot.
But remember, Abu, that's in Saudi Arabia where they're running the show. The Muslims over here are trying to make it palatable for Westerners. So they are dishonestly claiming that no, it's the earth going around, and they're trying to bend these verbs, as you quite rightly said. But if they go to places where the Muslim majority is running the show, they will quite happily say, no, science is wrong, it's this or it's that. But the Muslims here want to appear to be more reasonable, and so they are trying to circumvent the clear interpretation of these verses by saying something else. So to answer your question, Fee, they're coming there. I think they know that these verses are not, but they count on people in Speaker's Corner not being able to refute them like Abu could in Arabic. So all they have to do is go, hang on a moment, and they'll start to quote it in Arabic. Now, most of us don't understand Arabic. You might. Abu does. I don't. So when he says something in Arabic, I can't. All I can look at is the English translation. So hang on a moment. The English translation doesn't say that. It says they're swimming in their own orbit, which means they orbit the Earth. Very clear to me in English. No, Mr. Muhammad Tall Guy will go and he'll start to quote in Arabic. Now, if you were standing there, Abu, you could slice and dice him and no problem. But I let him carry on in Arabic because he keeps doing it all the time. And then again, he sounds a little bit reasonable. I don't think they believe it though themselves. They're trying to make excuses here, but they just count on most people not understanding Arabic or understanding it as well as Abu does.
I began a series of videos that are very, very crappy. Like the quality of them are so crap. I call it Falsifying Islam. Then I began this, but I never completed that. Maybe I should do that sometime. Just take all the things in Qur'an and Hadith that are falsifiable claims and explain why they explain the grammar and everything. It's just that it's such a big project to do.
One at a time, though, Abu. Just do one at a time, Abu. Where it's sort of the main ones from Speaker's Corner, for example. You know, the battle of that battle that was foretold. Okay, that's not a scientific claim. That's a prediction anyway. But the sun sitting in the muddy pool, the sun and the moon swimming in their own orbit. The earth and the heavens split asunder. These are the basic ones that these guys bring up all the time, and then they try and argue that matches science. And it's so pathetic.
Yeah,
and I've been very generous in the past. I'm not going to be generous anymore with this sort of stuff. I'm not going to be charitable. I'm just going to call this out as bollocks and explain why it's bollocks. You know, they obviously won't accept that. But
bring them to the show, and then I can explain it live.
What chance have they got to come here?
No, but you can bring the argument. Then I can explain live.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's one of the biggest ones is the heavens and the earth were split asunder, and according to them, this precisely matches the inflationary model of the universe, i.e., the Big Bang type of thing. This is a big one. They use this all the time.
Is it this? What verse is this?
I can't remember, but the earths and the heavens were split asunder is the English translation.
Yeah. I know.
Abu, I had one.
Sorry, I was just saying, Abu, it would be highly recommended if you can do that. That would be great, because the only other person I know who's Arabic and who's done these videos is the Master Arab, and he goes into detail and then refutes it, and also produces one in Arabic. So he's pretty good, and I can't find many.
Remind me, like this, as I said, this month I wish I was like an old guy that had all the time in the world, but like pension age, and I could
Stop Spamming might have done a few of them as well, so have a look at his channel. Stops, if you're watching, if you're listening there, maybe you can just put a channel in that we can have a look at until Abu gets around to do it in Arabic. You might have, debunked. You probably have debunked most of these scientific claims. But Abu, feed again. It'll be on YouTube itself. But even without any of that, I mean, it's just one just needs to think about it for a little bit. I don't need to know a lot other than the earths and the heavens were not split asunder. If you want to try and claim that that's like the inflationary model of cosmology, and I had this debate, and again, I was super charitable. This is the time when I was being very charitable with Shabir, and again, it lasted like 45 minutes, where he's trying to claim, here's what you'll get as a response, by the way, on that particular one. They will try and use a reductionist argument, which goes, so here's the basic argument. Well, what is the earth made of? I don't know, particles. What's the heavens made of? Particles. Ah, there you go. You see, it's all made of particles, therefore it is true. I don't know if you can see the flaw, the mountainous flaw in that argument.
Absolutely, yeah, I did see the video. It was cringeworthy, to be honest.
I was very charitable. See, a lot of the videos for me, I go back and look, and I can always say, hey, I could have done something better or different. As you can see, having a live debate is not as, I'm not an experienced debater, it's not as easy, because you can always look back, but that's a good learning for me. So I go back and look at my debates whenever I've watched them and go, hey, you know what, I didn't explain that, or I didn't catch that. But I don't go back home and go, do you know what, they're absolutely annihilated me. I just don't have a position that I can respond with. I've never, ever had that. So they might seem clever, but afterwards on reflection, and you go and look at the argument, they're standing on like a paper castle, in quicksand. The fact that I can't catch every single one of their mistakes just means I'm just not good at catching their mistakes in real time. But when you go and look at it afterwards, they're swimming in quicksand. They just don't have a concrete answer. All they've got is concrete ways of trying to avoid it or make it sound like it's eminently plausible. That's all they've got when when you get down to it.
Abu, just on the sort of let me rephrase it. There was this video by Jay Smith saying there's like 26 different versions of Qur'ans. Do you have any thoughts about it? Because obviously the Arabic.
Like today, 26 versions. Do you mean like the Qur'an, like different?
Yeah, there's like a Hafs Qur'an, and there's another version of
Hafs and Warsh and
Warsh, yeah, and obviously they've got small sort of differences in them. Muslims claim that these differences not they don't really change the meaning of Quran or the verse, so that is acceptable. But still, there are few different versions of Quran. What's your thoughts on?
Dude, that's a very long topic. Actually, I don't remember everything about that, but I mean, there are three. Well, how many? What is it like? I don't even remember how many there were. I was using like the most common version, the kind of Saudi version, Saudi Egyptian. But how many ways is it? 7 or something? I don't even remember. Like there are 7 or something like that.
7 ahrufs.
Yeah, is it 7 ahruf?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It is 7 ahruf, yeah.
Yeah, but then there are like versions of them also. But I think we made a video about, or a show about this a long time ago, back in the days when Clincher was here. Then we were talking about this, and actually I don't remember exactly. But I mean, that's a long story. That's something you can.
Fair enough. I mean, it's a long explanation. Don't worry, we can continue with the show.
No. But it's an interesting question. It's just that I don't remember everything from the top of my head, and it's a long topic.
What I want to know is because the Christians like Jay Smith from Speaker's Corner, he has quite a few videos on it, and he claims that there's major variation, and so did there's another person, I don't remember his name, but these Christians, they say the variation in the Quran are significant, because what you hear from Muslims is that it's one Quran all the way from 7th century to now. And what these guys are saying, that is not the case. You've got these different small little variations, but still they are major ones. So
yeah, I mean, that is obviously not correct. Like, if you look at this manuscript that they have in Birmingham, is it Birmingham? I mean, I've read those 2 pages. I think it's just 2 pages, and they have no points. They don't have kasra and dhamma and all these things. What do you call that in English? The marks. They don't have valves and things like that. So, but it's an interesting question, like how many of these are preserved from the original times. But the point is, look, I'm a revisionist, so I don't even think, I'm not even sure that the standard narrative from the earliest period is correct. So I don't think there's any evidence that the standard narrative is correct. You see what I'm saying? So to date it back to the 7th century, I don't think there is any really hard evidence for that. I mean, some parts of the Quran may be from that time. Some are probably older. What ahruf did they use? As I said, one I want to make a huge research about Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, and in that in the same when I do that research, I can make research about these things also, about grammar, about the ahruf and so on. But I think it's extremely hard to know any. The further back in time, and especially the further back from the 9th century you go, it's very hard to find any real evidence. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they will claim that there is. And they'll point to all kinds of things.
But if they claim, but these things are like test. If they say that there are evidence for that, show me the evidence. I mean, maybe they're right. Maybe there are
there's some videos. I'll look for it for you. I'll make a note here to find them for you for next time, or before next time, so you get a chance to watch it. But they are, the Muslims in Speaker's Corner are rock solid in their view, their belief, not their knowledge, their belief that the Quran has got evidence attesting to the time of Muhammad's time, not even after.
If they have those evidence, then let's look at those evidence. I mean, I'm not invested in any. I just want to know the truth. I'm not invested in, like, if my revisionism is false, then okay, then it's false. I don't. It doesn't matter. But for the first, I do like. It was I don't remember everything about this from the top of my head anymore. But even when I did remember all these things, everything isn't.
I would love to
clear
get
about
Mansour on here. I'd like to get Mansour onto Jinn&Tonic, because he makes these claims and he thinks he's refuted Jay on the 27 Qur'ans, on the things not pointing, some of the old temples not pointing towards Mecca, the fact that the scholars say that it's going back to the time of Muhammad. He seems to be, it's obviously not something I've got expertise on, but he feels like he's refuted Jay, and they are rock solid, and the evidence is incontrovertible that the Quran is unchanging and has been recorded from the time that Muhammad said them. So all his followers all repeated it, then it was written down, and they all memorized it. So of course their memory is perfect, and then it was written down and collated. And for them, this appears to be incontrovertible evidence, which for us as skeptics, we're going, I can't remember what happened last week, never mind years ago. So how do we know that this information, if it was revealed, or even if Muhammad just dreamt it up, whatever, has been perfectly passed down? It's very unreasonable, implausible for me to believe that's the case.
Yeah, but like the thing is with these things, the only thing you have to do is pretty much show an old manuscript with where like the ahruf are defined. Then you have solved all the problems. So, but I mean, even in the 7 qira'at that we have today, there are like, I mean, from the top of my head, just the first in Surah Al-Fatiha, like I used to read Maliku Yawmuddin, which means the king of the day of judgment. And I think the Warsh is Maliku Yawmud. No, Malik means the owner of the day of judgment. And then in the Warsh version, it's Maliku Yawmuddin. And that means more like the king of the day of judgment. So there's just the only difference there is the length of the sound. And that's because in the beginning they didn't have, those signs. It was only in the time of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf that they added those dots and everything that you can see. For example, I can show you.
How long afterwards was that?
That is at the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. It's the same as my, I think.
How long after Muhammad's death, give or take?
Google Abdul Malik ibn Marwan and you will see.
Right.
I just want to show
I guess from my point of view, this is not Abu might have more information. This is not something that you and I would get involved in. If they say there's only one Quran, we don't have enough evidence and to debate that in Speaker's Corner, I don't think. And maybe you do, Fee. I wouldn't go there at all. Let Jay deal with that, or maybe Abu, or somebody that's more familiar with that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't get into a debate on, there's 26 Qurans and they've got different things. It's too easy for them to even dishonestly, to shut that down. Unless you've got an expert like Abu or somebody else, we would put ourselves in the firing line there unnecessarily. There's so many other things that we can have a much better argument about, that we can be knowledgeable about than tackling the 26 Qurans.
Yeah, that's why.
Leave that to somebody that's got expertise in that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get his opinion, because that, to me, is quite interesting, because all I've heard in past, whatever years I've been looking into it, is there's just one Quran, and all of a sudden last year I realized, no, there's like 7 Arufs, and then now there's 26 different versions. So that obviously challenges their most central belief that there's just one Quran all the way up to Prophet Muhammad. So to me, it was really interesting. Obviously, I don't have much information.
It is very interesting, and I if I had time, I would definitely research this. Maybe I can make little bit
That might be the
research
project
next
for the
week.
next month or two.
But the thing
and
is,
over time.
right now I'm so bloody busy. Sorry. But,
No, don't worry about doing it now. But this would be something that if you could do this sort of by middle of the year or whatever, go through this and then come here with take your time with this. It doesn't have to be in the next month or something, but where you could present for us for 20 minutes, half an hour, on why you think that the 26 Qur'ans refute the idea of a single Qur'an, or if it's true, why it is true, whatever the case is. It's just interesting because obviously Jay Smith has gone and done what he thinks is his research, and they seem to have, and I'm going to use the word in inverted commas, effectively countered him, in the sense that for the observer, they seem to have brought up objections that seem to be reasonable. And I always say seem to be. It probably isn't under investigation, knowing everything else they do, but I haven't investigated that. So that might be worth doing, because then we could talk about that. But if they brought it up to me and they go, hey, some people say there's 26 Qur'ans, we know that there's only one and those 26 are basically the same. I'm not going to argue. That's not a point that's that important to me. There's much bigger problems and hassles that I would tackle rather than that. But it would be good to know anyway.
Yes. What was I supposed to say?
So coming back to my previous, sorry, I'm just asking questions, but just coming back to the previous question I asked about what is your main sort of claim against the Quran itself or the religion of Islam. I think the two claims you guys made were both scientific claims, like that, in Quran it says this, but in reality it's actually the other way. Is there anything else you could bring, or that's what you're going to bring to the table against a Muslim?
Any argument. I mean, there are so many arguments you can make. Therefore I like. This is the reason why. But I prefer things that are. It's my idea is that the more testable a claim is, the better. So I prefer testable claims that you can test. You see what I'm saying?
I agree.
So
yeah, most of the stuff isn't though. Isn't that the problem?
Yeah.
I would suggest we don't, because the moment we attack the Quran ourselves, we need evidence, which we could provide. I think it's better for us to go, you provide something from the Quran that you think is true, and we can investigate it. So get them to provide something to us. Because if we do it the other way around, where we go, hey, the Quran's a whole lot of hogwash, now we have to go through a long story to try and justify that. Let them bring their strongest claim that the Quran is true, and we will discuss that claim. Rather than go, we'll bring the strongest claim that we think the Quran is false. Because as Abu said, there's millions of different things you could do, but let them do it. Because once they give us their strongest claim, then we can investigate that. And if that's weak or refuted, we don't need to go any further. We just need their best thing, because otherwise it becomes too time consuming to do. Remember, here's the thing, and I won't touch on it for very long. These guys are making the claim. Remember, there's a knowledge claim. Either a God exists or it doesn't. That's the knowledge claim. It's either true or it's not true. What we believe about it is either we can accept the claim, we can be agnostic about the claim, or we can reject the claim. They are bringing a belief claim that says God is, and the Quran is true. I can reject that straight away as not having enough evidence. So they need to provide the evidence. So the atheists, I like Matt Dillahunty's newer version of the definition of atheism, which is the rejection of theistic claims. That's slightly different to rejecting all gods, because I don't anyway, and neither does Matt, and most atheists don't reject God from a knowledge point of view. We reject the positive claim that theists make, or we don't accept it, whichever term you want to use. So that's if they've got to bring the information. I could tell you why I don't think there's a God, and I can make a case for my agnosticism from a knowledge point of view. But I can make a case for my not believing their claims, and that's so we need to get their best claims and counter that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
Because if we go to Speaker's Corner, we go, hey, the Quran is a load of junk. It's all bollocks. That probably isn't true. There's probably some truth in the Quran somewhere. But if we go and say that now, well, please provide your evidence. So now we've got to pick something to have a conversation about. and they will go, oh, well, that's not important, or they'll counter it and go, well, that's not important. Really what we want to do is get from them their best arguments, the most important things as to why they believe. And then we can have that conversation, because if that's refuted or countered, or we can show it to be weak, we don't need to go to the smaller stuff. We can have that conversation. But I would ask, what's your best evidence? If I was speaking with a Muslim and we're talking about the Quran, I'd say to him, what is the biggest reason you believe the Quran is true? What in the Quran makes it true for you as the biggest reason?
So what
will say?
So what arguments have you encountered then? So for me, the most famous ones are the Quran is unchanged. Obviously, there's over whatever centuries, nothing has changed in Quran. So that's one strong argument which they claim they have. And then it's about that challenge which they bring a surah like it. What else? I think,
but that's a dishonest challenge, by the way. That's a dishonest challenge. So the
first
one,
the Quran hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Look, that even if that is true, I mean, you have like, I mean, you have the different qira'at, so that's not true in that way. But even if that is true, that's not like a definite argument that Islam as a whole is correct. I mean, if you have some text of I don't know, Herodotus or something, I don't know if you have the original text, but if you have say that you have the original text of Herodotus, and that those texts haven't changed, I mean, does that mean that Herodotus is divine? That he gained his knowledge from God? I don't know. No.
I agree. That's what I respond to them as well. That there's so many texts which predate even Quran, and they haven't been changed. I think that claim is basically to address what Christians say about because they're saying basically the Bible is corrupted now. So they're saying there's been some change in the Bible, hence they have to make that claim. And now they're using that claim for everybody, even for atheists.
However, the Quran says, Inna nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, which means we sent down this dhikr, this like the Quran, that's the point. Wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and we are protecting it. So if you can show that the Quran has actually changed a lot, then you can see that it's not really protecting it very well. So yeah. But it's also like,
again, you need an expert, a historian to challenge that, you know. So again, I wouldn't challenge the Quran is unchanging. It may well be, it may not be. Who knows? You need a historian to then go into the vowels and say maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the second one is patently false and is dishonest, because when you ask them under questioning about bring a surah like it, you can only bring a surah in Arabic. So for all of us English speakers, that's not a valid challenge anyway. But even if it was, and they would accept something in English, who sets the rules? I've asked them this question. Yeah. I don't get an answer. Who is arbitrating this? And that's just arbitrary anyway. So it's not like it's written in the Quran. Here are the things you can falsify. If you do this, 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 and this in the Quran, it says here's the 5 things you can do. If you can do these 5 things, you falsify the Quran. It doesn't say that. And so firstly, it's in Arabic, but secondly, even if it was in English, it's arbitrary. Somebody else is making the decision as to what would be falsification. And by that standard, I can make that claim about anything, because I've now got my own arbitrary standards. I just make the bar so high that nobody can actually bring anything. So it's a false and dishonest challenge anyway. So I dismiss that entirely.
Like, I mean, it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, it's like, anyway, like if you don't bring it and you won't bring it, so fear the fire, and that fire is like fuel is humans and stones. Anyway, so it's like the best example of how to make an unfalsifiable argument. There's no proof we can bring to them that shows that this claim is false, but if we don't believe it, then we're going to be tortured in eternity in hellfire.
Yeah. So that's a non-argument. That is so easy to refute, in my view. That's a non-argument. But again, you know, if you watch the videos, they do this with unsuspecting people. Now, had I gone there for my first time, I would have sat and listened to this and gone, yeah, do you know what? I don't know. So they're running these. It's just a script they're running. It's just like they're reading off a script, and they do it with unsuspecting people that probably. But at some point, they'll run into somebody that is really knowledgeable and will make them look foolish, and then they'll have to run away. But in the meantime, they can quite happily make these assertions. And that's the thing about Speaker's Corner. You can make all kinds of ridiculous assertions. It's much harder to counter something than it is to make a crappy claim. You can claim anything, but to refute it, now you've got to go and find sort of evidence, because they won't bring evidence, but they can make all kinds of claims, like Sabur's claim there with, you know, evolution, that there's no evidence that absolutely shows that, you know, fossils, you know, are our ancestors, that sort of thing. Now you've got to go and bring all the evidence, but even if you brought it, they still wouldn't accept it. So, but my biggest one is always, how did the universe come about? The Quran says the universe was created by God. That's the one I hear most, because there's this gap in our knowledge there that we don't have certainty yet about the beginning, if there was a beginning to the universe. That's the first one they bring to me. That shows that the Quran is reliable, it's true, it's a really good book. So it is a scientific claim, but it's the big one because there's, you know, a little bit of a gap in our knowledge. So wherever there's a slight gap in our knowledge, those are the ones they will attempt to use as making the Quran seem a magical book, because it's making these predictions, supposedly, or claims, shall we say.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Fee, anything else? Habu? We are running about 2.25 hours.
Yeah, maybe we should
try and
end
keep
with
it under
the hadith of the
10:30.
day. I haven't really found any.
I don't know if
really
there's find a hadith in the meantime, Abu. I'll just ask for if there's anything in the chat. Is anybody who's watching, if you want to ask any further questions, otherwise we'll kind of wrap it up for tonight. Fee, if there's anything else you want to ask that won't take us on a huge detour, then go ahead. Yeah, we'll run latest till about 10:30. But if there's nothing else for tonight, then, you know, we can bring it to a close.
No, I'm okay. I've asked a few questions. Maybe I'll save some for later.
Yeah, there'll always be another time, so not a problem there. But a good thing to do, Fee, if you're going to come on regularly, which is great, so thanks for coming on, and feel free to do it every time. Have a look at a few videos. If you've got anything like you have done, bring a small clip that we can talk about as well, because I don't get to see every single video. I'm subscribed to a lot of the channels. I don't always get time in the week to look at all of them. So if you do bring something, just run a minute's clip or something like that, and we can discuss that. I've got another one that I'll maybe bring up next time. I've got a lovely 8-minute video here from Sean Carroll countering the fine-tuning argument. So that might be, you know, educational for all of us. He gives 5 reasons. Very, very. I love the way that he debates. He's right on point. It's just like not sometimes with Krauss going off on tangents. Carroll is on point. So I like his debating style, and he brings some good points. So somebody that, you know, I think is a good debater in the sense of, you know, bringing good evidence and sticking to the topics.
Okay, so I have an hadith that is very suitable because we have had a lot of feminists that seem to support Islam. So here I have an hadith narrated by Imran ibn Hussein. The Prophet ﷺ said, "I looked at paradise and found poor people forming the majority of its inhabitants. And I looked at hell and saw that the majority of its inhabitants were women." Sahih al-Bukhari. Yes.
Cool. Thank you for that. Maybe something's come up in the chat there that we can talk about next time, perhaps, unless anybody's got some info at hand. Arab slavery in Africa. I think that was quite prevalent. I did see a ridiculous video again with Hamza. Every now and again, the man goes off the deep end. And I'm being charitable here. Other people would just say, you know, he's crap, etc. I don't tend to say people or crap generally, but every now and again. His one claim was, yeah, no, there's no ways that Arabs could have taken people in Africa captive, slaves. Those were big, strong African men. There's no ways that, these poor little Arabs are going to come and, defeat these big, strong African men. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
Have you heard of
I think it was in this video with Sarah. Yeah, I was with in one of those videos with Sarah. Sorry?
Bilal was a slave. The first mu'adhin. So obviously they managed to capture him.
The little bit of info that I've done, my numbers were about 200 million slaves were taken in North Africa and Europe during the Muslim conquests. About 200 million, I think, was the figure that I've seen as a historical figure. So it's not a small amount of people, especially at that time as well.
Yeah. However,
Just one thing, something interesting I've come across recently is there's a guy called Sam Gerrans, and he's got his own website, say it's Qur'anite.com, and basically what he proposes is that the hadiths, as you guys were saying last time, that the hadiths are all sort of manufactured and we shouldn't rely on it. So he has sort of published his own Quran Complete Revelation, which is devoid of any hadith sort of influence and in terms of its tafsir and everything. That was interesting to me because there's somebody who's claiming that Quran itself is something we should be following. He obviously follows Islam, but he takes Islam from Quran itself and doesn't really looks into the hadith. So you have these people, Quranics, I guess they're called, who just purely follow the Quran and doesn't really care about what hadith say.
It's probably they're probably not in the mainstream though, are they? Because there's four
definitely not. Yeah. I think it's just a rather stupid position, but I don't know.
Cool, guys. Thank you once again for coming on. It's been an interesting chat as always. I think. So as I say, I won't be here next week. So Abu, if you're able to run, and Fee, if you could keep him company next week, if you're available. I'll be in Europe, but I'll be back the week after.
If anyone, people, please, you can. I'm very happy if you can bring in news or things like that, news or questions or funny things. I will host it next week, but I won't have time to prepare so much things. So if people can.
Abu, can you put in the chat an email or a way for people to contact you? So if there's anything of interest that they want to talk about next week, even if it's just sending you a link to a video or maybe a couple of questions.
On caliph.golden.coin@gmail.com.
Can you just type it in for people there? Because they won't remember it. And then I can always point them back.
golden.coin@gmail.com. It's spelled exactly as it's spelled in English. caliph.golden.coin@gmail.com. Hopefully, maybe stop spamming. Maybe I can join. Why he's not joining? Bring news and bring funny questions. Maybe
funny questions.
Yeah.
Caliph, sorry, what is it? Caliph dot?
Golden.coin.
Golden.coin. Yeah.
@gmail.com. I type it here.
I've done it.
Okay. Yes.
Cool. Okay, there we go. There we go. Brilliant. Guys, thank you very much for being on. Thank you to everybody who's in the chat for coming on and sticking with us. I will be back in 2 weeks. I will leave it with Abu, Caliph, and Fee if you are there next week. Have a good session. Feel free to close it earlier, Caliph. You obviously don't have to run it for 2.5 hours. If you run for an hour and you've got through it all, that's absolutely brilliant. It's no problem. And then I'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and we'll see what we've come up with since then. I will send you stuff if I come across anything. I'll pop a few things over to you on email as well.
Thanks.
So thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody in the chat. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. But Caliph and hopefully Fee will be back next week.
Thanks.
Salam.
Take care. Thanks very much.